Welcome to Retcon Air, the Plotline Repair Podcast. Like the name suggests, this is a podcast that takes a look at the plot lines of movies, sitcoms, books, video games, and even Broadway shows. What we do is we break down who wrote it, how it was received by the community, and then how it impacted us. We also take a walk through the main moments of each story, and of course, wrap it up by adding what we might do a little bit differently if we had the chance to take the reins for a little bit and maybe alter something that doesn't quite jive with us. Now, we totally know and understand that it's a hell of a lot of ground to cover, so in the show notes of every single episode, you'll find a table of contents with time codes to serve as a guide to each episode of Retcon Air. And for sure, we're going to cover comments and criticism. We're going to offer our own ideas for ways that we could repair the plotline of each of these stories, but myself and the people that help make this show, we do so because we love these pieces of work and we love the chance to get to talk about them, because maybe there's stuff that you haven't really heard about, or there's something that we might be able to divulge that maybe you didn't quite understand before. So, if that sounds good to you, stick around as we break down Jedi Fallen Order. Now, I am joined again by the big bad Briar Fitch. Brytown, welcome back to the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me back for, I don't know what number this is. I quit counting after 2. But I'm pumped for this one. I'm pumped for Jedi. I intend to be a Jedi Master by the end of this. And if I'm not, well, I don't think we did it right.
Okay, well, so to give you the exact number, this is the 6th episode, which is important because this is also the last episode, not ever, but of our pilot season, which means that after today, I'm not going to explain anything in the bumper. We're not going to waste any more time explaining like writer's room and the different segments. You've had 6 full episodes to figure out how we run the show, and from here on out, we're just going full production mode. So
not holding your hand anymore.
No more training wheels. We're ready to rock and roll.
I mean, we'll still hold your hand for a long walk down the beach, but not through figuring out how we do this.
To gaze lovingly into your eyes, but not to guide you through the show. So we think we've done enough. Yeah. So one last time, Briar, why don't you explain what the writer's room is, and then graciously take us through that.
All right, for the last time ever, Writer's Room is where we explain who either wrote or contributed to the storyline. With video games, we'll also do a dive into the company that helped develop the game, sharing bits about their development process, previous work, and growth as a company. And that'll all come in handy later when we are breaking down some of the gameplay elements of the story.
And yeah, so initially I was dead set against talking about gameplay when we broke down Batman Arkham Knights, but after we discussed it, you made some very relevant points. I did change my mind with the caveat that anyone could write in if they thought it was a waste of time.
Has anyone written in?
Yeah, and so specifically a pretty cool guy named Sean told us to keep discussing gameplay. And so, plus there are many times where we'd retcon gameplay elements, so obviously it makes more sense to do this. So you were right, I was wrong.
Could you go ahead and say that just one more time, please?
Moving on.
Oh.
So let's start by talking about who developed this thing.
Jedi Fallen Order was developed by Respawn Entertainment, which is relatively a young studio, starting back in 2014 with the first Titanfall as their flagship game, which released exclusively on Xbox.
So now, Respawn Entertainment has a pretty rock and roll backstory that we're going to dive into. And great companies are built on great leadership, right? And so for Respawn Entertainment, the top of their totem pole has 2 heads, Jason West and Vince Zampella.
I don't know, it sounds like some weird fancy musician name. He should be like a Sinatra era. I expect him to be on stage with
a guy who has a lot of high collar shirts, but doesn't wear anything underneath. So there's a lot of taco meat and stuff pouring out. I have no idea what this guy looks like, but I think that on name alone, that's what he sounds like. And so while those names might not mean anything to you, Jason West or Vince Zampella, their work definitely does sound familiar to you, because before launching Respawn on April 10th in 2014, Jason and Vince both led teams over at Infinity Ward, a company that developed some games for a little franchise known as Call of Duty.
What? And
not only were they making Call of Duty games, but they ended up making 2 of the best received Call of Duty games in their catalog.
Oh snap.
So in 2007, Jason West's team released Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, which would grow to become one of the most critically acclaimed games in the entire Call of Duty franchise. The game would sit with a Metacritic score of 94, and to this day, the highest rated Call of Duty game, which actually is tied with the sequel, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
Which honestly were 2 of my favorites in the entire Call of Duty series. Modern Warfare 1 and 2 were amazing.
And I think that's the thing. It's like those games are like the capstones, and when we both worked at GameStop, they were talking a lot about Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, which is fine.
The Modern Modern Warfare series, those 3 were incredible. Black Ops 1 and 2 were also solid, but like past that, they have gotten progressively more garbage, in my opinion.
Right, and it's interesting just to hear of like how sacred those 2 pieces are, and how these 2 guys were very specifically tied to it.
Stories in there alone, dude, they were intense.
But guess what Activision game has the highest rated score?
I honestly have no idea.
It's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
No shit. That's amazing.
It's pretty amazing. After that, riding on the critical and commercial success of Modern Warfare, Jason and Vince renegotiated their contracts with Activision in 2008, asking for large bonuses and creative control of the series in exchange for releasing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 in 2009, which makes total sense. You know, they have this hit of a video game, so it makes sense to them to go, all right, well, hey, we did this for you. This is a big deal. We want to renegotiate, maybe get a little bit more money for bonuses and stuff, but then we also want to make sure that we can keep doing what worked last time. So from a creative perspective, I totally get the why.
Yeah, it makes
totally
sense. The world. You have something good going for you, why mess it up?
Yeah, and bureaucracy can come and kill a game. You know, there's a lot of factors that can kill a great game, and they just didn't want that. So Activision agreed to those terms on the condition that the control would revert to Activision if they were both fired. And then guess what happened next, Briar?
Oh, they were fired. Like, there's no way they weren't fired. Why? If a company comes at you and you're negotiating your contract and they're like, yeah, we'll give you everything you want, but if you're fired, if we fire you, we get everything back. You don't sign that contract, you're going to be fired the next day.
And like, I get it, like from Activision's standpoint, they want to protect their IP. So like, yeah, if you know, talent in the video game community is always in flux. So people are, you know, moving and growing and launching their own companies and stuff. And that's what we're about to talk to in a second. But like, obviously the company wants to protect that IP. And this is like kind of a showcase of what happens if you don't really pay attention to what happens.
Yeah, man, they literally set it up for like, all right, write us one more bomb game and then you're out.
And so according to my research, Activision sought ways to try and fire them both to regain control of the IP while the 2 were making Modern Warfare 2. So as a quick timeline, they released Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare in 2007, they negotiated their paychecks in 2008, they launched Modern Warfare 2 in 2009, and then guess what happens in 2010?
They were shit-canned.
They sure were.
Called it.
In 2010, Jason and Vince were given the old, well, this company's going in a different direction type of speech, and they were both fired from Activision, which forfeited their bonuses. Lawsuits, of course, started to fly. Jason and Vince were suing for the unpaid bonuses that they rightfully earned because of the success of Modern Warfare 2, and then Activision was then countersuing them, alleging that they conspired with Electronic Arts, EA, to damage the brand name of Infinity Ward while they were working on a separate project. But that's not even the coolest part of the story.
Well, what is the coolest part of the story, Devin? The suspense is killing me.
Well, in March 2010, Jason and Vince are terminated from Activision.
Oh, snap.
In April, 1 month later, the pair used funding from Electronic Arts' EA Partners program to form Respawn Entertainment.
Oh, snap.
By the end of July, 38 of the 42 members that had made up Infinity Ward to create Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2 left Activision and Infinity Ward to join Respawn Entertainment.
So real quick.
Yeah.
What do you think those like last 4 people were doing? Do you think they just showed up one day to an empty office? Like, where is everybody?
That's what I wonder. I mean, like, so who are these 4 random people that like nobody liked, nobody wanted to talk to? No, and like one day they're like,
I haven't seen Chet in a while, man. Do you know where it happened?
Was there an email that came out that was it a half day today, or is there a holiday that I'm not celebrating?
Is it like an off-site meeting we're having?
So in conclusion, Respawn was Jason and Vince's middle finger to Activision for fucking them over. And it worked out because they settled out of court for $42 million. Damn. And because it turns out that at the time, Activision's chief legal officer told the director of IT to, quote, dig up dirt on Jason and Vince because we just want to get rid of them, end quote. And that apparently came from Activision's CEO, Bobby Kotick. And so that's just per my research, what I was diving into. I'm not saying officially anything because I ain't trying to get sued right now, but I'm telling you that when I dove in and I was looking at like, there's, here's this legal document that talked about this legal document, and then all this stuff is public domain. You can go find it, but this is the story that I found.
So like, wait, the CEO fessed up to their director of IT?
So from what I found, the chief legal officer and then the director of IT were the ones that were cited in these kind of court depositions talking about the CEO, Bobby Kotick, who is the one that told the chief legal officer to do this. So that's the story I got. So apparently the CEO told the chief legal officer, hey man, we need to get rid of these guys. That person is then who went to the director of IT saying, hey, I need you to dig up dirt on them because he's the director of IT.
So then those two guys below the CEO are like, yeah, no, he told us to do it. Like, is that how it?
That came out later.
Okay.
And so
I'm just trying to like understand the logistics.
And so that was the thing. And so, so Activision, while this is all going on, is saying, hey, we think you guys are kind of working with EA to make this secret project. And they're like, no, we're not. We're just making Modern Warfare 2. But then all the while they're making Modern Warfare 2, the CEO is telling, by proxy of this legal guy to go get the director of IT to dig up dirt on these two guys so they can fire him so they can regain control of the IP. So there's that whole thing was a clusterfuck. And like we kind of started by saying like great companies are built by great leadership. And this is a really bad case of like really terrible leadership, not managing their resources very well. And it drove, 38 of the 42 people left that organization. So
those four people left over were just like garbage people.
Yeah.
They were the interns who just got hired.
They had just started, or they weren't really pulling their weight anyway, or they were like the complainers, for whatever reason that they didn't join, we don't know. But what we do know is that
I hope they feel bad about themselves.
When all but 4 people leave your company to join the people that you got rid of, that says that they weren't the problem, you were.
Yeah.
And so when I was putting this story together, like I got so excited about how interesting the story of Respawn Entertainment was, because it's a really cool story of, creativity, taking a stand and making your decisions and going for it. And so we might be totally wrong on what exactly happened. There might be a totally different side to this for sure, but this is just what I found, and this is what I wanted to share.
Do you think the guys over at Activision, like specifically this Bobby Kotick dude, feels really stupid now as Respawn's doing some cool stuff?
I'd imagine that he's well enough paid that he'll be fine.
Oh, I mean, like financially, he doesn't care. I just think, like, do you think he looks at like, that could have bought me my 3rd yacht?
Yeah, well, and so think about what they did. They did Titanfall 2. They did a whole bunch of other games. They did so well with Respawn, and all that stuff could have been under Activision if they would have handled it properly, and they didn't. They let Titanfall and Jedi Fallen Order, this awesome version of Call of Duty with robots and mechs and stuff, and then this awesome Star Wars game, they let both of those walk out their door because they had really shitty leadership, and that's unfortunate. And that's what I don't want for us. I don't want you to walk around and join another podcast because you're unhappy with my leadership in this.
I'm in talks with 3 of them.
You're in talks with Respawn right now to start their podcast.
Yeah.
I'd be so mad.
Respawn podcast. I liked it because it was close enough to Retcon. Retcon, Respawn.
Yeah. I mean, because you want to make incremental differences, so you can.
Yeah. That, and I want there to be a misspelling when they're looking for Retcon and they accidentally type like RES and Respawn pops up.
Well, anyway, so enough about that. So that's who made it. That's kind of the story of Respawn. So who wrote this story?
All right. Well, we'll start with Aaron. I'm sorry. How do you say it? Contreras. I was close. All right, so we'll start with him. He was the narrative leader at Respawn and has a hell of a pedigree. He's worked on Counter-Strike. I did not know that. That's pretty cool. World of Warcraft, Mercenaries DOS, Star Trek, Far Cry 3, which actually I liked Far Cry 3. That was, I think, the one I played the most. Mm-hmm. Bioshock Infinite, which my wife loves. Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag.
Which hands down to me is Assassin's Creed.
That is in my top 3. I still say Revelations is the best because Old Man Ezio.
Ezio is pretty cool, yeah.
Black Flag's top 3.
Yeah.
And most recently he worked on Jedi, which what we're here for today. He also worked on Mafia 3, which you like that one, right?
I do. This guy specifically apparently has my number. Mafia 3 is amazing, awesome story about this Vietnam veteran who comes home and he's just trying to figure out what's going on with the mafia in his hometown, and he's just wrecking shop. Very awesome story. Yep. And then Black Flag, again, like I said, is the best Assassin's Creed experience I've ever had. And I've played every one but Assassin's Creed Rogue, and still I can say that Black Flag is my favorite. And then now,
Rogue. You would like Rogue.
I think I would too.
It carries a lot of the same naval aspect, like the ship and all that fun stuff from Black Flag is in Rogue, and I don't know, you'd play it.
But so what happened with Rogue is what I'm concerned about with the PlayStation 5, because Rogue happened in that dead space between the conversion from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4.
Yes.
And so you got one-on-one. It was like Unity and Rogue. So if you switched over, you got Unity. If you stayed where you were, you got Rogue.
Rogue, I think, did come to the next-gen console.
I think it did at some point, but initially it was you had to pick your console, and the stories were linked. And that always pissed me off.
The very end of Rogue is the very beginning of Unity.
Right, so I've never seen that because I've never gotten to play Rogue.
Realistically, like, if you don't play it, like, it's a cool scene, but I don't necessarily know you're missing anything from it. Like, I could tell you later what happened if you really wanted to, but, like, it's a cool little tidbit at best.
And it's fine. I just don't like that idea of like, we're gonna make separate games for whatever. Like, no, just give me this year's Assassin's Creed on whatever consoles that you've been supporting, and then let us all move on together. And so I don't want that to happen with the PlayStation 5. Whenever it comes out, for whatever reason it comes out, I just don't want there to be this weird another, Ubisoft is making X for the 4 and Y for the 5, and I'm not into that shit. So other than that, though, I'm all in on Aaron. Aaron Contreras is a phenomenal writer. He's done some outstanding work in a bunch of games that I love. But who else we got?
So we also have a person by the name of Manny Hagopian?
You got me. That's way better. I was going to say Hagopain, but Hagopian sounds way better.
I'm going to say Hagopian.
Manny, if you're listening, there's no way you're listening, but if you're listening, we're so sorry.
He also wrote Titanfall 2, Apex Legends, and a few short films, and several episodes of the TV show called The Shy Ones. Titanfall 2 is amazing. I haven't played Apex Legends. I've heard a lot of like mixed on it for the most part. But anyways. Then this next one, Matt... Jesus Christ. Michnovitz?
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. Is where a lot of the Star Wars Street cred comes from. Works for Lucasfilms, not Respawn. So, I mean, that.
Okay, that makes sense.
He spent 5 years writing the Star Wars, the Clone Wars animated series.
Great series.
Fantastic series. He then spent did you see they're doing the final season for that?
I did.
I'm super excited for it. He spent 3 years working on Star Wars 1313, which was canceled, which was a canceled game that was supposed to follow Boba Fett as he navigated level 1313 of subterranean metropolis within planet Coruscant. Did you watch any of the old trailers? They did release a couple trailers for that game.
When they came out with it, because I remember it had just gotten canceled and those started surfacing, and I remember thinking like, this is such a cool idea.
Right? That is one of the few games out there that I learned about being canceled that I was genuinely mad about, because it seemed like such a cool idea, concept, story. And was it always supposed to follow Boba Fett?
So there was another one called Ragtag, which was supposed to be a more open world, different classes kind of thing. But then this one, 1313, was specifically supposed to focus.
Because I remember a trailer, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but like it was a ship was going down the giant hole to go to like to the other levels, and like shit went sideways and started blowing up, and like you kind of like just dove off of it, and then something happened, you like landed on level 1313. I could be thinking of a totally different Star Wars game trailer. I just could have sworn that this was the one. But all that to say, I don't remember seeing or hearing anything about Boba Fett in the trailer I watched, again assuming that trailer was for this game.
So I don't remember the trailer as much as like details. I remember it coming out, I remember thinking like, oh, this is going to be something cool. But then as I was researching for this episode, everything that I read was saying that was specifically to follow Boba Fett. So that might be
I'm fine with.
Yeah. But maybe that was a story of like him kind of like the Mandalorian did, where you're kind of like clawing your way to become, Boba Fett or whatever else. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I remember hearing about that and just thinking like, why is this canceled? They keep canceling all these badass Star Wars games for no reason. And it's just ridiculous.
I don't know, man. This game was apparently going to be a more mature adult-themed world, which, I mean, I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Abandoning the normally family-friendly brand, because I can talk, that Disney is more known for. So after Disney bought LucasArts and Star Wars, 1313 was abandoned. So anyways, then last up we've got Megan Fausti.
I gave you all the names.
I know. What? Out of the two of us, I'm the more illiterate and can't pronounce case in points. Pronounce words good. So you give me all
This
of
was
these.
more for me. I just wanted to have a good time today. This is more for me.
You're the worst.
Thank you.
Can't wait to start Respawn podcast. So anyways, we got Megan Fausti, who almost seems kind of like a story doctor. She worked for Adult Swim and Adult Swim Games since 2014, worked on Battle Chef Brigade. Okay. And a handful of other projects, but it seems like she made the name for herself working with teams to punch up, polish, and produce their stories.
And so that's pretty cool, because that writing team is pretty dynamic, and it's no wonder that the storyline kicked ass. So you've got, these people that have been working for Respawn for a long time. You've got this person who's a hell of a name in the Star Wars universe, who clearly knows it, knows how to write that story. And then you have this other component, who can come in and really try to doctor up stories to make sure that she's, plugging in holes, massaging it, making sure that it all works. So, to me, that is a phenomenal writing team to craft one hell of a dynamic, awesome, incredible story. But enough about that. We know who made it. We know who wrote it. Why don't we dive into Deep Impact and see what the people thought about it? And so why don't you take the top negative comment, and then I'll take the top positive comment for Jedi Fallen Order. Does that sound good?
Yeah, man, sounds good.
Okay. So for the top positive review that we found of Jedi Fallen Order, this one comes from IGN.com, who gave it a 9 out of 10, the editor's choice score. And then Dan Stapleton, who we've used before in this podcast, says, quote, "It's been ages since we got a great single-player Star Wars action game, but Jedi Fallen Order makes up for a lot of lost time. A strong cast tells a dark story while keeping things fun and loyal to Star Wars, and fast, challenging combat mixes with energetic platforming, decent puzzles, and diverse locations to explore for an all-around amazing game." Now so we've talked before about how much I hate bad writing in reviews, and so this one, even though that last sentence is like one of the longer run-on sentences I've ever seen, it was written in a way where I was able to read it. Unlike the last one that we just did with like Blade Trinity, where it was so full of parentheses that I couldn't get through it. And again, whatever, I'm not even going to say the name of that website anymore, but we're never going to use them ever again on this show.
They're dead to us.
So, top negative.
Okay, so I grabbed a user review for this one because I love user reviews because they're just so unjustifiably spiteful.
Yeah, man.
And petty. So anyways, all right, so the gentleman whose name I'm not going to reveal because I don't care. I don't want to give him the credit. So this is a longer one, and that's after I cut a bunch of it out.
Sure.
All right, so buckle in. It's just another rail-guided Star Wars story. The graphics are great and the gameplay is smooth, but EA could have grown a pair and offered us some multiplayer, question mark?
What?
Yeah. They wanted a safe, fair environment for everyone to play, because when you're rending people's arms and legs with a laser sword, you definitely should make sure everyone feels safe and treated equally.
Did you rewrite this? Or
No, this is a copy and paste. 100%.
Okay, keep going.
So yeah, feels safe and treated equally. In the old Jedi Outcast and Academy games, you gave us some of the best multi-user playability ever, but for some reason are too afraid of poor user reviews to attempt something with serious replay value. And then in all bold, "This game is not worth buying at full price."
Okay.
Your only hope of continuous play past a couple days will be DLCs released after for even more money.
Which is not happening.
No. I hope in EA's next endeavor, they try for something groundbreaking rather than trying to see how many times they can get into our pockets with a Force Unleashed reskin. Now, I'm just going to say this real quick.
Sure.
This is not a Force Unleashed reskin, because the Force Unleashed revolves so heavily on your Force abilities and like the very aggressive, brutal combat, and this is not that. You get 3, maybe 4 Force abilities, and like it's more of a counter, parry, block combat system. It doesn't carry the aggressiveness of Force Unleashed. So like, I hate this guy in his review because it seems like he had it in his mind what he wanted, and because this game wasn't exactly that, he's pissed. And
so decisions and expectations. He made the choice that he wanted this to be a reskinned Force Unleashed. The problem with that is I remember watching a behind-the-scenes featurette or something, I think it was on the second one, and they were talking about the mantra when making the Force Unleashed 2, I think it was, and they were saying like their mantra was kicking ass while using the Force. That was like their mission statement. So then in everything that they put into making the first one and the second one was all about how many Force abilities can we get, how crazy can this look, how do we get this guy to kick ass using the Force? And that's just not what Respawn Entertainment did with this property. It was much more. You were a Padawan and you've been hiding for 5 years, and you're still
a deeper story.
Yeah, you're still trying to figure this shit out. It had nothing to do with just being this end-all be-all badass, and like that would have made a weaker story in my opinion. Yeah. Like this was so well told with this type of character's abilities in this type of environment. Like this review doesn't make sense in context for what it is. Now I get it. If I would have looked at this game that way, for sure I would have been disappointed. Yeah. But you can't look at a game and say what you want it to be. You got to look at it and say what they're telling you that this game is going to be, and then you got to make that decision to say, do you want to spend your money on it?
Yeah, man.
That's how that transaction works. So I don't know. We could spend another 10 minutes just ripping this guy apart, but like,
not worth it.
Whoever this person is, they're ridiculous.
He's just not a happy person.
So enough about that.
Bet he hates sunshine.
What about us? When did we hear about Jedi Fallen Order?
Yeah, Devin, when did you hear about Jedi Fallen Order?
Okay, so I heard about Jedi Fallen Order when it was kind of sneezed out by Vince at E3 in 2018, and it was so disappointing because to me, E3 really peaked in 2016, and that was when they brought that badass orchestra, and they had the music playing over the game trailers, and like specifically, I remember that God of War reveal as one of the coolest video game announcements I'd ever seen. Like the audience, it was live, there was this music, and like everybody was just so blown away by that reveal. And so then how does, this Respawn team announce this new badass Jedi game? Well, 2018, their host, Andrea Renee, who you might know from What's Good Games or Kind of Funny or like GameStop TV or like a million other places. She's like a big name in that world. If you're listening to this podcast and you don't know who Andrea is, something's broken somewhere, I'm not sure where. But she just kind of sat next to Vince. I don't know. So they're going through E3, they're doing this thing, then all of a sudden they come back from commercial and Andrea's just sitting next to Vince, like in the audience. And so she's kind of sitting there and she just asks Vince, like, so what are you working on? And it's during this weird clunky interaction between like Andrea and Vince where they just kind of just get out the fact that they're, I can't tell you what it's called. Or no, he says the name. I think he says Jedi Fallen Order is what the name was. And, you're going to be holding a lightsaber, and then that's it. And like that's how it was revealed. And it was just like he had just joked with somebody about this new game, and they freaked out with like the producers and like, we got to get Andrea out there, and this is this big surprise reveal or whatever. And like they were so excited about getting the scoop
that they didn't spend the time to make the delivery worth it.
It deserved more than that, I thought. But what about you? When did you hear about it?
Was E3 related, but I think it was someone asking me, hey, did you hear about the new Star Wars game? Like, I know what about it, and then like just Googling it myself to see like, oh, Jedi Fallen Order, cool. I don't know, anytime I hear anything about a Star Wars game being announced and in development, I'm always skeptical because the most recent Battlefront 1 and 2s have burned me so bad.
Ironically, and that was EA.
Battlefront 2 on the PS2 was my shit. I loved that game. I don't think I've ever put that many hours into another game since. Like, it had so much to do in it, and I loved it. It was a great game. So, like, when the new Battlefronts came out, I was pumped for them, and they were god-awful, and I hated everything about them. So then, whenever that happened, like, so again, they announced new Star Wars games, like, I'm here for it. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm interested in it, but like, I'm gonna need to see some gameplay. I'm gonna need to see some reviews. Like, I need to see something that makes me want to play this game.
And so I gotta retcon myself real quick. So I thought you were talking about the new ones, Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2. I didn't know you were talking about the original Battlefronts. Those ones were developed by Pandemic Studios, Beanox, and they were published by LucasArts, THQ, Asprey, and then a couple other places. So.
And I should have known that because of how much time I spent in that game.
Yeah,
but,
so I'm just so used to everybody from the new ones, Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2.
I keep wanting to say Battlefield.
I want to say Battlefield because I was a Battlefield guy for years. But those were so riddled with microtransactions that the community response to that game was just atrocious. Everybody hated it. And that's kind of what made Jedi Fallen Order so special, because finally it was like, I think EA is still kind of like the overlords or whatever, but that still was this awesome Star Wars telling story that had nothing to do with microtransactions or online gameplay. Like, that's what made this story so strong. Yeah, for sure. And so that, like, from this idiot's previous review, it's like the last thing we wanted was this thing to be multiplayer because it had been so mishandled.
Absolutely.
But enough about that. I think we've done more than our fair share to fluff this piece. So why don't we get into it with you taking us through the synopsis of Jedi Fallen Order.
All right, synopsis time. In Jedi Fallen Order, you assume the role of Cal Kestis, a young Jedi Padawan hiding among scavengers on a planet full of wrecked starfighters and damaged droids. While spending the last 5 years surviving as a scrapper, Force-sensitive hunters known as the Inquisitors, specifically the 2nd and 9th Sister, arrive on Cal's planet seeking to kill any Jedi still alive after Order 66, or the Purge as it has become known. But an old message hidden in a droid with an erased memory holds a clue to possibly saving his peoples. And so the quest to rebuild the fallen Jedi Order begins. Well, it's weird. It's almost like that's where they got the name from. And the only question that remains is whether or not you've got what it takes to rebuild it.
And so before we dive into chapter 1, like, I rewrote the synopsis because I kept on finding synopses. I kept on finding written synopsises of games that were just ridiculously terribly written. So I just wrote one myself. So that's what we do here.
Sometimes, if you want a job done right, you got to do it yourself.
I'll retcon a synopsis. I ain't scared.
I ain't scared.
So chapter 1. 1, The Ginger Force Awakens. So I, for one, couldn't wait to try and rebuild Fallen Order, and I legit couldn't wait to get into this world and play with it. So the story begins on the planet Braca. Our hero, Cal Kestis, is working as a scrapper trying to pretend to be anything other than what the newly risen Empire is hunting. Jedi. We meet Cal's friend and partner Prof, who has been working on a salvage team with him, scrapping valuable parts off of the damaged starships from the Clone Wars. And what did you think about Prof at first?
So I thought Prof was your typical like goofy type mentor character, but at the same time, like when you first meet him, he's volunteering you for this seemingly dangerous act of like going up here and repairing, fixing this one thing. So I'm like, I don't know, like mentor type, but at the same time, I kind of feel like he's maybe doesn't have my best interest at heart. And and going off the name of the title, and I'm like, there's no way I'm not some Jedi in some way, shape, or form. So like, I bet this dude sells me out.
For sure. And like, I just wasn't ready to trust this guy until we met the Inquisitors, and specifically the second and ninth sister that we meet, for no other reason than I knew that the time period and figured that as Jedi, you couldn't really trust that anybody wouldn't be lured into whatever ridiculous bounty that the Empire was going to be offering, because you figure, if they're crazy enough to kill all the Jedi and then hire all these Inquisitors and run that. Of course, they've got bounty money and credits and all kinds of stuff.
So well, it's the Empire. They got money for days.
Yeah, man.
Full days.
So if you happen to be Jedi adjacent, even, I'm sure if you're like a Jedi sympathizer, I'm sure you had a bounty on your head.
You think there was someone out there who's like, God, I just really hate Tim. You know what? Tim's a Jedi.
Tim's a Jedi. Oh yeah, we were hanging out and like he was doing that thing with the broom where it like hangs out at an angle because of the planet. No, that was the Force. I know the Force want to see the Force. That was the Force.
I watched him levitate a mug. I swear to God.
I mean, you're going to sit there and tell me that he was holding it with his hand? Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. All I'm saying is he's probably a Jedi.
He said, let me show you this magic trick. And then he told me, nah, it's on a string. I don't believe it. He's a Jedi. Get Tim out of here.
Fuck you, Tim. So back to the story. Turns out that Cal has been hiding his powers the entire time they've been working together for the last 5 years. So 5 years of having these awesome abilities and you completely close yourself out. Which is a phenomenal concept to me, and that's kind of played with in a couple different ways in this.
And see, like, I was just thinking about this just now. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could go for, like, if I had Force abilities, I don't know if I could go for 5 years without using it.
And I think the only reason that he could is because of what he went through when he was just a wee lad.
That is fair. And also the knowledge of, like, if you use them, you will be hunted. Yeah. You are going to die.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I still think I'd probably just, like, I don't know, give the old razzle-dazzle.
Oh, this is so heavy. Oh, I'm so strong. Weird. Cal, you're so strong, right? Yeah, just be working
my scrawny AF, but dude, that thing weighs 500 pounds. Yeah, I know, crazy.
Dude, you were malnourished, but you were working today. Just can-do attitude.
My muscles are just really dense. They're not big, they're just dense.
So as they're searching for something valuable, they stumble across a fallen starfighter with the Jedi logo on it. And it's clear that the pain left from Order 66 still hurts Cal just as much as it did when it happened 5 years earlier. We know this because Cal knowingly corrects his friend as he incorrectly assesses that this has probably been here for 4 years. He quickly snaps and says 5 years. And yeah, I mean, this of course has been... So, of course, somebody who's gone through something like that, Order 66, has probably been counting his survival days every single day since and would know exactly down to the day how long it's been.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure if there's like a curtain in his room that if you pull it back, it's just tick marks on the wall where he just keeps...
Yeah.
But anyways, all right, so as they work to salvage one of the ships, the platform they're on gives way and Prof starts to fall straight into a Sarlacc pit. I haven't seen those in a while.
Been a while.
To save him, Cal, for the first time in 5 years, uses the Force to save his friends. Prof starts freaking out because, of how dangerous it is to even know a Jedi, and also, like, holy shit, you're a Jedi? Mm-hmm. So, but eventually he calms down and, is grateful for Cal saving him and, for Cal's friendship or whatever. And, regrets not being able to pay him back for saving his life.
And throughout this game, we're introduced to several Jedi powers. You're sort of introduced to the Force when Cal saves Prof. I think that's kind of where he uses Force slow, and then like the platform comes out and he lands on it. But here, we're introduced to a kind of Force dream, Force meditation kind of thing, which I thought was kind of cool. So Cal drifts to sleep and sees his former mentor, Jaro Tapal, who, after Force grabbing him off of his feet, tells him to trust only in the Force, and then Cal snaps awake. Now, I want to pause for a second because if you happen to be a parent that listens to this podcast, the second you heard Jaro Tapal, you instantly thought of King Roland from Sophia the First. But looking into Travis Willingham, who voiced Jaro, I found out that Travis is like in everything Disney has ever done, and is a huge deal in video games in general. He's also he's playing Thor in that Square Enix Avengers game. You're really excited about, right?
No, you are really excited. I am. You're excited about the Avengers game. I keep telling you about how it's going to be garbage and I'm going to delay it into infinity because I know it hurts you on the inside.
But like when the game was coming out and like the second I heard Jaro talk, I'm like, dude, that's King Roland, and like he's the perfect voice actor for like this father mentor like role. Like he's perfect. You know, I have a 5-year-old daughter and we've watched endless episodes of Sophia the First. We've seen so much of this friggin' show, but like he's this awesome king. Like he's got that perfect balance between, you know, him and like a younger person. Like it's awesome. I love it.
So anyways, Cal wakes up when the train suddenly just comes to a screeching halt. Him and Prof make it off the train and with several other people, and they're all being lined up, waiting for the arrival of none other than the second and ninth sister. The Inquisitor is working on behalf of the Empire to hunt down Jedi.
Dun, dun, dun.
The second sister antagonizes the group, saying that the Jedi Order was full of treasonous individuals and that everyone will be charged with sedition and executed if the Jedi does not make themselves known. We find what Prof's true colors are. And he's just a bro and does a bro thing. Says engineers became scrappers, workers just got worked, and that everyone in the Empire's eyes is expendable. So, of course, second sister takes her lightsaber out, holds it up to his chest, turns it on, thus stabbing him through the chest.
So outraged, Cal attacks the second sister with his lightsaber, but the second sister blocks it while the other half of the lightsaber is still inside Prof's body.
It's like, dick move.
And then with little to no effort, just force pushes him into the ninth sister, who, while holding him over the edge of a cliff, simply says, "Oh, I found the Jedi." You're damn skippy you did, lady. You damn skippy you did.
Where are the other sisters? 1 and then 3 through 8?
I'd imagine that the lifespan of a sister is not all that long. So maybe like 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12 are all, you know. Maybe they're dead. Maybe they're like on vacation. Maybe it's spa day at the Empire.
But like, okay, hear me out. But like, let's say the second sister dies. Does the third one get promoted to second?
Or do they retire that number?
Ooh.
I guess we'll find out in the sequel.
All right, so Cal whips out his lightsaber, breaks free of the ninth sister's grasp, and falls on a speeding train. We bust out Force Slow, which we can use to freeze, you know, blaster bullets and objects. Well, not really freeze, just slow them down. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's whatever. We learn some base combat and really, you know, start to begin our journey playing as Cal. So he's beating his way through this train full of people who want to straight up murder him. While running for his life, a mysterious spaceship with a mysterious woman hanging out of it, you know, appears just in time to help Cal get out of there. He's getting ready to get blasted by a ship. They come in on their ship, fucking blast that one away, just like a shoe. Get out of here. Go on, get. She says that, hey, they're here to help. Cal says, okay, why not? Yeah. And, you know, joins them to get the hell off the planet. But not before one brief lightsaber fight with the second sister.
That he definitely does not win.
Sure doesn't.
And as the ship whisks us away to safety, we learn that this woman goes by the name of Seer. And with the help of the ship's captain, Grease, they're here to rescue Cal and save the universe. They take Cal to a mostly unknown planet, Bogano, and they tell him that there is someone here that he needs to meet in an ancient vault that they need to access. Enter the lovable, merchandisable droid BD-1.
Oh, for sure.
And it's through BD-1 that we meet a former Jedi Master, Eno Cordova. This Obi-Wan type son of a bitch tells you that there's a Jedi holocron in this temple with a list of all the Force-sensitive kiddos and their locations in the galaxy. Then he goes on to say it's yours if you follow the path that I traveled. So apparently there is something that can just unlock the vault. We head back to the ship, fire up the engines, and jump into hyperspace. And so begins our adventure. Woo! Which leads us into Chapter 2, You, Me, and the Galaxy.
Aw, yeah, road trip. Alright, so first stop is the planet Zepho, where the key to unlocking the vaults supposedly awaits. After a rough landing in a storm that kind of resembles a hurricane, we get our first glimpse of the planet, and you know, so we start to make our way through it. We're here to find the tombs of these old 3 Zepho sages, and in doing that, you know, we just wreck shop on a bunch of stormtroopers because they're just everywhere,
all over the place.
I suddenly remember how to do force push, which is cool. We find our way into one of the temples. While we're inside, we discover that the ancient Zepho peoples used the force. They were, you know, force sensitive. sensitive. Then, through an encrypted log from Cordova stored inside BD-1's noggin, we learned that Zepho had strong ties to Kashyyyk.
Road trip, bitches! Upon arriving on Kashyyyk, we have to make our way through an Imperial blockade. Once we manage that, though, we make our way down to the planet's surface, only to realize that the Empire is destroying the damn planet.
Classic Empire.
Classic Empire. And they're, of course, consuming it for its resources, and then, of course, enslaving the population, which are the Wookiees. We quickly find ourselves in the middle of a battle between the Empire and freedom fighters. So we do what we do, and we get involved by hijacking an AT-AT and blasting our way in. And along the way, we meet a younger, not limping or wheezing Saw Gerrera, who you might recognize from Rogue One. He wants to know why the fuck we're in Kashyyyk, and we explain that we need to find some guy named Tarful. He says that's impossible, and we say, bet me, bitch. And so let's pause for a second, because I want to know where you're at with Rogue One, because we're actually going to do Rogue One. I'm going to do that with Shelby next. So this is kind of like a cool Star Wars sequence of episodes that we're doing right now.
So we mean just specifically with him being the tie-in?
No, so Rogue One
in
overall.
General.
Like, how do you, how is that property? Are you into it?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm cool with the tie-in to, like, other, works in the universe. Like, I think it's dope.
Yeah.
As far as, like, Saw himself, I could kind of take relief his character. I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan of him in Rogue One necessarily, so then, like, he pops up in here, I'm like, oh, cool, this guy.
So was it his character that you didn't like, or do you not like Forrest Whitaker, like, as an actor? Like, have you seen some of his other
Whitaker's
stuff?
cool. I'm cool with him. It's specifically the character of Saw Gerrera.
Okay.
I don't know, he just seems like such a dick for the sake of being a dick. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, I get it. You got a lot of shit on your plate and you're dealing with a lot. I get it. But, like, quit being a dick for, like, 5 seconds.
And it's just interesting because in Rogue One, you see him and he's just like, on his last legs, man. Like, he's just
still just being an asshole.
Just doing what he can. But then now you get to see kind of like his origin story. So I don't know. I thought it was cool.
I do think the tie-in, it's cool. I don't know. As far as, like, him being the tie-in, I could take it or leave it.
And I don't know if I'm ready to declare Rogue One as my favorite Star Wars movie. It's definitely high up on the charts, but like Rogue One is what introduced me to the brutality of Darth Vader, because before he was just this giant fuckboy, and so now we get to see like this awesome version of it. And then like with Saw Gerrera's character, like being this interesting but kind of small segment, kind of unpacked even further. Like I think it's awesome. Like however, like I think it's 19 years or something from like where we are to where they are, if I remember correctly. It's 19 or 29.
I know we broke down the timeline, but I can't remember what it's at.
But it's just cool to see like that connection. So I like the way that they did it, and it was a really cool opportunity for this small standalone story to feed into this other standalone story, which really, I mean, was, that's a gamer's only experience. Most of the people that are into Star Wars that aren't gamers, I mean, we'll just never know that story, and that's unfortunate, because I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. All right, so anyways, we proceed to whip out our lightsaber, as we do. Anyways, we proceed to whip out our lightsabers and slash our way through this refinery, freeing Wookiee slaves along the way. And after an all-out murder session, we get a little pep talk from Saw, and in his, passively annoying way, kind of just basically says, good job. Then we get we meet with a freedom fighter and a Wookiee commander who agree to help us find Tarful. But, that's going to take a minute because he is like the leader of the Wookiee resistance, and he is hard to find. So, in the meantime, we're just going to do the electric boogaloo back over to Zepho. Don't you shake your head at me.
Yeah, I even put a little, you see this little icon in here? Yeah, I put that in here because I was disappointed in you.
Hurtful. So, once we're back on Zepho, we find more clues about the Holocron vaults, only to be ambushed by the second sister. She is the worst.
She's not great.
She's mean, just hurtful.
I know, like, it's like something bad happened to her.
I know.
Weird.
Turns out she was a Jedi Padawan.
Oh.
I know. And not only that, but Seer is the Jedi Master that trained her.
What?
I was shocked too.
Weird.
And her name is Trilla Siduri?
Sure.
Okay. She was captured by the Empire because Seer was captured by the Empire and then, just brutally tortured and finally gave up Trilla's location. So, before she departs, Trilla warns us, hey man, maybe Seer will betray you too. Starts planting the seeds of doubt.
And it's interesting because, like, we kind of associate, like, the stormtroopers, like, these really terrible at shooting people. They're, like, clumsy and easy to beat, whatever else. Yeah, they're bad guys or whatever, but, like, you don't really get to see the brutality all that often. And so this is kind of like a snapshot on, like, yeah, they're torturing these people for information, like, to no ends, so long that they're actually brainwashing and converting them to the dark side, creating these inquisitors. And that's just another cool kind of concept that I just wasn't really beholden to until playing through Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which is what makes this such a cool game.
Yeah, man.
So Cal learns that he needs to find a Zepho artifact called the Astrium to unlock the vault, but is then captured by a Haxian brood bounty hunter and forced to fight in a gladiatorial arena owned by Sork Tormo, the Haxian boss. Cal is rescued by Sierra and Grease and receives a communication that Tarful is willing to meet. And it's weird because, like, they're flying all over the place. I was actually wondering about this because I was like, why can they just bounce from place to place to place? But it's actually answered later on because I guess Sierra is bankrolling this entire operation. So, like, they can go wherever they want to. Like, I don't know why she has endless resources, but she's bankrolling everything that's happening in Jedi Fallen Order.
Hey, man, when the Jedi Order fell, she just claimed all those bank accounts,
So everybody's running, and she's, like, in the Jedi vaults, just, like, cleaning it out. Like, I'm going to need this, then I'm going to need this.
3 of those, 7 of these, 8 of those, all of those.
This is sad, but I'm looking fresh to death.
Okay. So anyways, now we skiddly bop our way back onto Kashyyyk, and we meet with Tarful, and he instructs Cal to seek answers at the top of the origin tree. That giant tree you first saw on our first visit to Kashyyyk. Mm-hmm. On the way up there, he's attacked by the Ninth Sister. God, jeez.
They're all bad. All the sisters are bad.
I think I hate her the most.
She was the more annoying one.
Super duper. Whose ship is taken down by this large, winged creature. A bird, if you will. Cal wasn't expecting that. Cal finds the creature wounded from the attack and heals it because, why not?
I was going to try to make a wounded bird noise, but I was like, that's going to sound insane. Keep going.
Cal finds the creature wounded from the attack and heals it with a little stim pack, granting him access to the top of the origin tree via a flight on its back. And also, honestly, that cutscene of flying to the top of the tree was beautiful.
Very cool.
It was the coolest. I loved the scenery. And that's the thing. I love the scenery in this entire game. Like, when I was playing back through Zepho and you're on the cliffs and you're kind of just looking at all these lakes and everything, like, it's pretty.
Yeah.
And then, that Kashyyyk scene is fucking beautiful. Mm-hmm. So anyways, he finds a recording at the top of Cordova telling him that an Astrium can be found in a Zepho tomb on Dathomir. Cal is then attacked by the Ninth Sister, who survived her, her ship crash or whatever, and he defeats her because she's the worst.
She is. And I do really like the Ninth Sister as a villain. She's big, she's scary, she's got this ability to boomerang throw her double-bladed lightsaber, but it's also this continuous theme of Jedi having a special connection to the world and the life around them. Because, like, before that, like you were saying, where, like, Cal was able to, like, heal this kind of bird and, like, kind of help the bird out, and, like, there was kind of relationship building there. In the new one, Rise of Skywalker, Rey kind of does the same thing with this crazy worm monster thing. And so, Cal and this giant bird, he helps him out, and then it's just, like, this kind of cool connection between the two. But, yeah, I don't know, like, I know you said that you kind of hated the Ninth Sister, but, like, I think it's kind of cool to have this, like, big kind of hulking, the Hulk is everywhere in, like, all the movies, and so he's, like, this, super crazy monster thing. And so, like, it's cool to have Cal constantly outmatched physically with force abilities. Like, throughout this entire story, he's very underprepared for the task at hand, and he goes anyway. I think that kind of is the testament of Cal Kestis, is his courage, despite how completely not ready he is for this process.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love the Ninth Sister. Like, as far as villains go, she did fit the bill pretty well. I don't know, there's something about her I just didn't like. And then, like, you don't really get a whole lot of, like, look into her character, so, like, I really didn't have a whole lot of a reason to care about her, aside from she's just someone who's in your way. I remember during the fight, too, I don't know if they did it via cutscene or just dialogue, but, like, she delivered, like, a handful of, like, lines pertaining to the story as a whole, but, like, I can't remember what they were, just because, again, she just wasn't that memorable of a character outside of just being annoying.
Yeah.
But as far as the Jedi nature connection thing goes, that was pretty cool, and the big ass blue bird was pretty rad. And I do like that, this super rare bird, and it's probably the last one of its kind. Of course, Cal gets to ride it.
Of course.
Why wouldn't he? But any hoozles, moving on to chapter 3, new crew, new you.
Don't lie.
I love
the chapters are your favorite part of this podcast.
100%.
I know they are.
So on Dathomir, Cal's progress is impeded by a Night Sister named Marin, who blames the Jedi for the massacre of her people during the Clone Wars. Wasn't their fault. And attempts to keep him away by creating an army of revenants. Cal experiences a flashback of his former master, Jaro Tapal, sacrificing himself to protect him during Order 66, and is then attacked by Jaro's spirit, leading to his lightsaber's kyber crystal being destroyed.
And so we really need to break this part down, because this is what made this game relevant. The story was interesting and it was cool and it was awesome, but like the thing that really anchored it was like you got to see firsthand what the Purge looked like. Yeah, you weren't like at Jedi headquarters or whatever, you didn't see Anakin just like slashing through people, whatever.
The younglings.
Yeah, all the younglings, but like before I jump into this, like it was just so cool to start out as like very young Cal, just kind of talking to the stormtroopers, and like they're all cool with each other and they're just joking and whatever, and like they're used to seeing this kid who's coming for training. Like it was so interesting to see how confusing that turn was.
So I know, like, for the most part, if I remember correctly, like clone troopers are kind of bred and programmed to obey and whatnot, and that's kind of their whole thing. But to go from joking around and like being friends with this Padawan and his Jedi Master to straight up trying to kill them, like I get it, like you were told, hey, they're actually traitors, but like still that bond you have with them. Like if I remember correctly, in the Clone Wars, specifically, actually, then when you get into Jedi Rebels, like you find, and I like Rex and I can't remember the other guy's name, the stormtroopers that led that whole battalion that was with Anakin, like you find them hiding out in the desert because I can't remember if there's some sort of implant that made them like follow rules. I can't remember that episode, but anyways, they just didn't follow Order 66. They just dipped out because they didn't want to, because they had that connection. So like for these guys, just be like, hey Cal, how's it going? How you doing today, sport? To like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna shoot this kid in the face.
Yeah. Sorry, bud. Word came down from on high. You got to go.
Yeah. So anyways,
we see Order 66 from the perspective of the dark side, which is pretty fascinating if you think about it. But this time around, we see it from the point of view of a youngling. So an experience that he dropped his fucking lightsaber when it happened. And to have this moment where he broke that lightsaber was, gifted to him from his pet. And so I was talking earlier is like the reason that I like Travis Willingham, who voices Jaro Tapal and who also does King Roland in that Sophia story, is specifically tied to this moment, because there's that point where I think Cal gets shot at and falls because he's young, and so he falls in a way where like his wrist kind of like hits the ground, and it's not his fault, it's just the way that he fell. He kind of let the lightsaber fall in, and then you hear Jaro say, Padawan, your lightsaber. And like that was such a dad mentor, like just come on, how many times have I told you?
Yeah.
In like the one moment where like you needed that lightsaber more than you'll ever need this lightsaber in your entire life, and you fucking drop it. Like that was like this weird, heartbreaking, like perfect circumstance story. Like that's what made me love like Jaro Tapal in that moment. Like it was perfect.
No, man, I get that.
But yeah, I mean, it's to have this moment where he broke that lightsaber, and the fact that it's this constant issue with his survivor's guilt.
Well, it's not even that he broke his he didn't break a lightsaber. He broke the lightsaber that was given his master's lightsaber.
Gifted to him. So he loses the first one, and his master is disappointed in him. Master dies trying to protect him, gifts him that lightsaber, and then he's still dealing with this so much that he ends up breaking that one that he replaced.
Trying to protect him, Master's lightsaber gets broken in half because he had a double-bladed. Yeah. Gets broken in half, and just the only working half just gives it to him, and then you crush it.
But yeah, I mean, like, what did you think about that whole time period?
It was intense.
Yeah, man.
Because again, like you said, like we've seen the Purge. We've seen all that happen from more of like the Empire side of things, like them going in and wrecking shop, or like from a kind of watered down version from the Jedi for the most part. But like this was the first like in-depth experience watching it from the youngling specifically's perspective. It was dark.
Yeah, man.
It was real dark. It reminded me too a lot of Revenge of the Sith. One of the Jedi, Aayla Secura, I think was her name. I don't know why I remember that, but it shows her on a planet is surrounded by her stormtroopers, and they all like literally just get in a circle and just start firing on her.
Yeah.
And I remember reading like that was so brutal, because even when she fell, they just kept unloading on her. And that act was so brutal that supposedly that ripple in the Force is what then tipped Yoda off to what was happening.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because like shortly after that, it cuts to him, and you can see he's really like being affected by it.
And that was the thing. It's like everybody kind of like grabs their head and like kind of leans into, like, everybody felt this crazy loss of life. This, you know, the complete burning rage of Anakin Skywalker, the complete decimation of all the younglings, and then all these, you know, the stormtroopers turning on their Jedi and stuff. And so it was this crazy harrowing, like they're constantly talking about, we're all connected, everything's connected, whatever. Yeah, and that, for good, bad, or otherwise, that means when something terrible is happening, everybody can feel it, and that sucks.
I just remembered this too, and sorry, I gotta talk about it. One of my favorite Robot Chicken sketches, next to the World War II skit they do with like the kids. It shows Anakin walk into the temple where all the younglings are, and they come out like, Master Skywalker, what are we gonna do? And it shows him activating his lightsaber. Keep in mind, this is all claymation because it's Robot Chicken. And it shows like him having an inner like monologue of like how he's gonna cope with doing this. And then he completely takes himself out of the moment and pretends he's in a field with flowers, and he's using the lightsaber to cut flowers. So, and he's just there, la-di-da-di-da. And then it flashes to, he's in Padme's apartment, and she comes home and says, oh, Anakin, I'm home. He's like, oh, cool, hey, I got you fresh flowers on the table. And she walks off screen. You just hear her start screaming because she's in the kitchen, and he forgot that the flowers are youngling heads.
Oh, no.
It's amazing.
Dark. Anyway.
All right, so back to Dathomir. So Cal meets a former Jedi by the name of Taran Malicos, who crash landed on Dathomir during the Purge and has been seeking to learn the magic of the Night Sisters. They're spooky. So Malicos offers to teach Cal how to handle his dark powers, but he refuses and GTFOs. With a broken lightsaber, a dejected Cal heads back to the Mantis, where Seer admits when she learned Trilla became an Inquisitor, she briefly fell to the dark side, which is why she chose to cut herself off from the Force completely. So the Mantis makes its way back to a place called, I think, Ilum, I don't remember, which was kind of a rite of passage for young Padawan learners hoping to become Jedi Masters. You know, younglings would head here to get their Kyber crystals, and it was a whole trial and rite of passage, and like you had to find the crystal calling for you. And that's what they'd use to build their first lightsabers. And it's in this very place that Cal rebuilds his lightsaber after he has like he has a rough moment. Like he has that moment where he's ready just to give up, call it quits. Like, how many times can you get kicked in the dick before you just like, enough's enough? Yeah. And he almost drowns, almost freezes to death, about ready to die. He's going to give up. And that's when BD comes up with an encrypted log from Cordova. And it just explains like why Cordova's doing all this. It explains BD-1, because BD-1 was Cordova's droid, and BD-1 agreed, if I remember correctly, to let his memory be wiped and stored in these encrypted logs so that you could go on this journey, so he could lead the next person. And it's through that pep talk, well, kind of a pep talk, it's through Cordova, you know, talking to BD-1 and explaining like what BD-1 sacrificed to be here that kind of gets Cal up off his feet. Like, you know what, man? All right, let's do this. Round 2. And then, you know, you rebuild your lightsaber and you get to choose the fun color. And then you take Seer, because she gave you her lightsaber too. And you use that to rebuild yours so it actually functions as a double lightsaber again. Yeah. And it's a cool moment.
So I think we all were kind of concerned. They're like, all right, here's another new droid. R2-D2, C-3PO, those are stock.
BB-8.
BB-8 came next, and we're like, okay, I see you. I see you. All right, we're doing all right. And then when we were starting to see like those first initial trailers of Jedi Fallen Order, and I'm starting to see this little, you know, hey buddy, you know, come on, whatever, and I'm like, all right, okay, whatever. But like, holy shit, if this writing team didn't do an outstanding job, and like the animation team didn't do an outstanding job of giving this little droid a great personality, made him interesting, made him funny. He was kind of like this little rascally kind of robot thing, and then those moments like that story right now, like really kind of anchored like the humanity of BD-1 and why that friendship was so important to Cal. It was awesome. It was an awesome story.
Took him from just being a droid to being a crucial part of this story.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, for sure.
So anyway, back on Dathomir, it's there where Cal retrieves the Astrium and overcomes his guilt for his part in Jaro Dapal's death, which is perfectly timed because right after that, Malicos tries to tempt Cal to the dark side, but Cal resists and fights back with the help of Marin. And I like the similarities of her and Cal. Their kinship made a lot of sense to me. So I'm looking forward to more collaboration with those two because it's with her help that they defeat Malicos and bond over their shared losses, which is cool. Like all the conversations conversations that they have on the way back to the Mantis is really cool. And it's in a beautiful callback to the way people rub off on one another. Cal encourages Merrin to go find her own destiny and not to do what he was doing back on Braca. And after a quick thought, she joins the Mantis crew and heads for Bogano. And so that was cool because to me, that is exactly what Prof told him. You got to go find your own destiny, dude. You can't just stay on this planet forever. And then he says, well, what's wrong with this planet? Whatever. And so it's kind of cool to see that taken forward to Merrin then, where he's having kind of that same conversation. You can't just stay here forever. I lost my people too. I'm trying to rebuild my people. Like, why don't you join me? Let's go, let's go do more. Let's go explore, whatever. And I thought that was a really cool callback to the friendship that he had with Prof and then what was going on right now with Merrin.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a huge fan of like the Night Sisters in general in the Star Wars universe. They're ooky spooky, and I don't know, like the Clone Wars, the animated series, does a really good job of like explaining them and what happened to them. I think we talked about it a little bit, like shows like Darth Maul and his brothers tie into the Night Sisters and like all this crazy shit. So I mean, I'm cool with her hanging out. Get all some of this spooky Dathomir witch magic. Let's roll.
And so, do you think there's going to be a potential kind of thing between either him and Merrin, or do you think they're even going to broach that, or what do you think?
Not.
Yeah,
I don't think they'd broach it. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how you would make it work in a sense that would make sense in the story necessarily. Yeah. But
personally, I hope he hooks up with Grease, if he's hooking up with anybody. I hope there's like the weirdest relationship we've ever seen in gaming is like the relationship between like Cal falling in love with Grease for no reason. Because why not? Because it would make no sense and be so weird. And that's what I want. Like, Merrin is too easy. They're similarly aged, they're similarly talented, they're similarly powered. But like, no, I don't want that. I want like Grease to start like, hey man, I grew this for you. Do you want this? And like all these weird, I made you your favorite dish, Cal. Right. And then like it's the grossest love story we've ever seen.
I'd be okay with it. I'll allow it.
So anyway, Chapter 4, The Jedi Knight Rises.
I don't know if we can use that title, man. That's too close to...
It's not dark, it's Jedi.
All right.
I mean, we'll see. We'll get sued anyway.
Yeah. All right, so the crew returns to Bogano so Cal can enter the vault and retrieve that holocron, yo. Lying in wait, Trilla, of course she is, ambushes him and steals the holocron. Of course she does. Heading to the Inquisitor headquarters. Of course she is.
Hell to the yeah. This is what evil layers should look like.
All right, so as the Mantis heads for Nur, Seer reassumes her status as a Jedi, using Trilla's old lightsaber because we took it from her because bad Trilla. And then she grants Cal the rank of Jedi Knight, which like... That's cool.
Another very cool moment.
This very powerful moment. So together, they assault the Inquisitor headquarters and allow Cal to defeat Trilla, recovering the holocron. Seer attempts to make amends with Trilla, but this guy, MFing Darth Vader, appears out of nowhere and is fucking just... You just hear his raspy, asthmatic self.
Yeah, I think he just ran up a huge hill and he's just...
Okay, so Darth Vader appears out of nowhere, kills Trilla for her failure, and then Cal and Seer both attack Vader, but then are essentially powerless against him. Like, Seer lunges at him, he just waves her off. We're pretty sure she dies. Yeah. He gives you the line of, you would be wise to surrender, or something like that, and he's like, she's like, yeah, man, I would be, and then bolts, which was perfect.
And so, because that's the twist of the story, like, holy balls. Like, I didn't see that coming, I didn't know that Vader was going to be in it, and it helped lock everything in place, as far as time and his abilities, and, like, everything, like, it kind of synced all of a sudden, like, when I saw Vader. Like, what did you think about that?
Okay, so Vader's presence in the game, first and foremost, was actually ruined for me. I was scrolling through Facebook and an article popped up that just said Vader was in Jedi Fallen Order. And I intentionally I scrolled as fast as I could. I didn't want to read anything about the article. So, like, I knew he was going to be there. I didn't know the when, the why, or the where. I just knew he was going to be in it, which, honestly, I kind of figured he would be. But, it sucks that, like, okay, well, now I know. But, dude, his entrance into it, though, the camera's facing Trilla, and she's, you're talking, you're trying to be like, hey, man, like, you kind of, it feels like you're making... headway getting her to maybe come back. Like, her and Seer talking, it seems like there's light at the end of the tunnel that Trilla may come back to the light side, and then she freezes. Trilla just goes completely rigid. Her eyes get wide with just horror, and you hear Vader breathing. You're just like, oh shit. And then that's when you find out that he comes up the steps and he's just holding her in place so she can't move. And then Trilla gives you that line of, what was it, avenge us? And Vader just cuts her down.
Yeah, man, she's done.
It was intense. What'd you think of it? How'd you feel about it?
I loved it. I didn't know it was coming, and so that was the thing. I was so shocked by the fact that it happened in general, and then just to see his. We knew with the prequels how crazy overpowered Anakin was, and he had these amazing abilities, and then he got his ass handed to him by Obi-Wan, which tells you what kind of class Obi-Wan is. Mm-hmm. And then to see that, now Darth Vader really coming into his own. He's been doing this for 5 years, because, at the very end of Revenge of the Sith, the very end is like you see that last scene is where he becomes Vader. Now we're 5 years of being Vader now, and he's got a crew of Inquisitors, but he can still throw down. And it's so crazy to see. And again, how powerless Cal Kestis is, and how powerless Seer is, and how powerless Trilla is, like how powerless everybody is against the force of Darth Vader, and like how lethal this dude is. It was amazing.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so anyways, unable to defeat Vader, Cal and Seer, barely escape his grasp with the help of BD-1, and Marin. She actually comes in. They're about to drown, and she saves them.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Back on the Mantis, Cal, who is in possession of this holocron, even though he finally has it, realized that it's more of a danger since if anyone else got their hands on it, and they destroy it.
Mm-hmm. And so what would you have done? Would you have rebuilt the Order, or would you have wrecked the holocron? What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. Rebuilding the Jedi Order would be cool. It'd be pretty rad. But I also understand that seeking out these younglings, trying to rebuild, the second you come into contact with them, they're in danger. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I would have done. I think the weight of knowing that I am putting these children in harm's way, in a big way, I don't know. I think I would have broken it too, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think I would have done that as well. There is no Jedi Order. There's no way that you could protect them. It's just you, Seer, Grease, and Marin. That's it. That is your team. So it's so
BD-1
and BD-1, but it just seems so irresponsible for you to try to let's go find everyone and keep them safe. Where? Take them where? You'd be running. This is not.
And you can't even use Bogano, because at the beginning of the game they tell you that really only Cordova was the only person who really know where that Bogano had existed, but now the Empire knows it's there.
Every time you go back, there's stormtroopers all over the place.
Yeah, Trilla ambushed you there. They know about it now, so you can't even come there.
And so I think you can make an argument for either one, but I think ultimately the best decision was exactly what Cal says. We got to trust in the Force. The Force is going to have to take care of them. It'll guide them, because that's what it does. Yeah. And, now we've got all these potential other stories with all these other people on different planets and stuff like that. And that's kind of the cool thing about this property is, we were told this awesome story with Cal. We can keep going with that. You can do this with literally any kid on any planet of any race, and that's stop giving me people. Let me go see an alien story. Let's flex a little bit. And I think that's what made this so interesting is now you can really sever Cal from it and let Cal go on his own adventure, and let's go figure out some other ones.
Yeah, man. All right, so after they destroy the holocron, they've now completed their mission. They did what they set out to do. Now you get that beautiful Star Wars moment of Cal asking where they're off to next.
And then that's it.
Yeah, man. So that's our story.
So what did we think? What did you think overall?
I thought the game itself was beautiful. I thought they crafted all the worlds beautifully. I think it was fantastic. The story was awesome. I loved this game enough to platinum it.
Which boggles my mind, because the amount of game bugs and glitches and the difficulty playing through this game, I couldn't handle going through it again. I replayed it and I was getting pretty far, and I just wish we're replaying God of War right now. Mm-hmm. And New Game Plus is so awesome, because by the time you beat a game as long as God of War and as hard as God of War, you've earned all your shit. Yeah. And with Jedi Fallen Order, by the time you get to the end of the game, you've maxed out all your abilities. You're getting all your it's not a stim pack, it's a
stim. They're stims, the little health thing.
Yeah, I thought stim pack was a Fallout thing.
It is, but they called them stims. They just called them just stims.
Okay, so that you could get a whole bunch of those or whatever. But then when you start over and you just don't have all of your Force abilities that it's grindy. It's just so grindy.
Yeah. So when I platinumed it, it was still on my first playthrough, so I still had all my Force abilities. So it wasn't bad there. The harder combat based ones, I actually did by accident, just going ham on some stormtroopers. They popped up. I'm like, oh, convenient. So for me, it was more the time I had to put into going through to each planet and 100% of each of the maps, which we were talking about what I was doing. I was getting super frustrated because there were rooms that are just so hidden that it was impossible to find, and I'm looking through guide after guide just to find them. And then I get all the way to the end, and the last trophy I need is a fully grown terrarium. And I'm like, I have all the seeds, and then I count. I'm like, I'm missing 1 seed on Bogano. Oh, and I was missing three encrypted data logs from Cordova. Luckily, everything was on Bogano. So I just showed up there, picked it all up, played for 15 minutes more so the terrarium could grow, and that was it. And I was platinum.
Nice.
Playing with all the force powers, it wasn't terrible, but then I started a new game just to kind of refresh the earlier parts of the story, and it was rough. There were so many times where like I tried to do the double jump, which, what do you mean I don't have double jump out of the gate? Yeah. There's so many times I tried to double jump or force pull or do anything and couldn't, and like I died a few times just because like I'm trying to do stuff I can't do.
And I wish they would have put force dash in this game.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't know, you see it every once in a while, but like force sprint is like a very underutilized force ability throughout 100%. Like all these things. That would have just been a nice feature because there's so much traveling in this game, it takes forever to get around.
You get like a force dash.
Well, you can,
one of your lightsaber abilities where like you just like cover 20 feet in a blink of an eye and then do a flip and lightsaber nonsense. But no, force sprint would have been great because again, Battlefront 2, the original Battlefront PS2 days.
Not
Battlefront
the new ones, the original.
The good one. When you were playing as Jedi, that was one of the things you do Jedi sprint, and you just would haul ass.
Yeah, man.
And it was great.
Yeah, that's what I want. But for me, I love the story. It was a very cool time period to dive into. So damn fascinating to be placed as a youngling during the most dangerous time to be one, and to accidentally drop your lightsaber and have your mentor scold you in disbelief that you lost your weapon literally the second that you needed it. It just turned out to be this very well crafted, very interesting connected story, and nothing seemed too forced or too out of place. I thought BD1 was fantastic, the perfect modern R2D2, and like even like BB-8 was fine. He was okay, but like
it was more comical.
Yeah, he was more like slapstick. BD-1 was a very practical, helpful, like sincere, and that's the difference. It's like you watch a movie, you only have like an hour and a half or 2 hours to get used to this person. You're playing through this game, you've got hours upon hours of inner dialogue, and every time BD-1 gets so excited to jump into a new chest that you opened, and like it's the way that he's he's beeping and buzzing, he's so excited, he jumps in, he's digging around and stuff, and like the interplay, it worked so well for me. It was awesome. And I hope they do a lot more with these droids. All right, so here we are. We're at the end of the road. And so when thinking about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, what would you change? Why would you change it? And then what would you do if you could retcon it? And Briar, since you platinum this grindy bitch, why don't you kick off?
All right, so gameplay that I would change in Jedi Fallen Order, or potentially maybe see in the sequel. I would like some changes to combat and more / different force powers, and I think those two kind of go hand in hand because, like, again, back to that shitty review that we were reading from that one guy, it's not a Force Unleashed reskin, but I would kind of like to see a little bit more Force Unleashed combat style in this, just because, like, I'm a huge fan of that in general, because, like, there were a lot of times where, like, I wanted to do a combo of force powers in Jedi Fallen Order that I couldn't do because like the timing of the combat didn't allow it. Like I wanted to like force pull slash, or like I wanted to slash a dude and instantly force push him away from me, and like you can't because like it doesn't flow that way. It wouldn't let you, and at least not to the speed I wanted to do it that I know I could do in the Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
So I would like, a little bit of that.
Well, and so you're playing God of War, and like one of the abilities is like you kind of slash, and then like your axe kind of like whips around you once, and then goes a lot further and stuff. And there's like you can kind of see how combat works with like the axe and the Blades of Chaos. That really would kind of support it with like a lightsaber if you could really dial that in. But the gameplay mechanics, the combat mechanics of God of War are fucking great, and this is really Respawn's first crack at it. So
and like for all things considered, they didn't do a bad job. It was good. I enjoyed it. Yeah. I would just like the little tweaks, like, faster response times for lightsaber versus, force powers being able to be used.
And the ability to input from one to the other, for sure.
And maybe a little, a handful of different force powers. Like, I know typically lightning's more of a dark side thing.
Yeah.
Which, is fine, but I would love to have been able to use that. Like, give me Gameplay Plus, because that's the other thing. I want Gameplay Plus, but in Gameplay Plus, I have to say it slowly or I'll start butchering it.
I mean, you can just say New Game Plus, it's easier.
No. Kind of like with the Dishonored series, Dishonored 2, when you beat it and you got New Game Plus, you can unlock both character Corvo and Emily's abilities, and give me something like that. Like, let me play New Game, but let me dabble in like a handful of dark side powers. That'd be kind of fun, just to like force choke a stormtrooper while his friends watch. But yeah, so that was my main thing. Slight changes to combats, tweak it a little bit, adjust the speeds and the timing of everything, and then new game plus.
Yeah. So what about the plot line? So that's all gameplay stuff, but plot line stuff. Since this is Retcon Air, a plotline repair podcast, what parts of the plot line would you repair, Briar?
Say that 5 times fast.
What plot lines?
Don't actually say it. Stop. I would like to deeper look into characters, specifically like Grease and Seer. Like we know Grease had a gambling problem, hence that whole issue we had. We know a little bit about Seer's background, like she was a Jedi, she was captured, she was tortured, she betrayed her Padawan, etc., etc. But like, give me a deep dive. You can't really give me a deep dive. I get that, but like, give me more in-depth look into them, like how Grease and Seer met, because I don't think they really talk about that. They might. I think they like reference it, but I don't think they actually really talk.
I think they gloss over it pretty quickly. I think you're right.
Yeah, so give me some stuff about that. Give me how the numerical sisters, as I'm calling them, actually came into be. Like I know they're Inquisitors.
Oh yes, another numerical sister for my team.
Like I get they're Inquisitors. We have story and lore and stuff like that on Inquisitors, but give me specifically the numerical sisters, like how they were picked, how they're brought into this, how they're potentially trained. Like give me a little bit more in depth instead of just saying, well, here's the second sister and here's the ninth sister. We don't care about sisters 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And like I want to know where they are. What are they doing?
Yeah, it's a lot of them, and it's a big hole. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm getting time constraints. You can't really do too much there, but give me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then a little bit more in depth than Night Sisters. Again, like the Clone Wars animated series really does do a good job of covering the Night Sisters, but like, give me a little bit more of that in this game. And then give me more Vader. I want more Vader in this game. Like the final scene. So you take a couple lights. No, you just straight up sprint away. You don't even try.
You're out. No, I think you realize very quickly that you got no snowball's chance, and then you're just gone.
So, like, that whole scene, getting away from him, was cool and intense and suspenseful, and, like, you had to go. It's time to leave. And, like, you were just trying, he's behind you, and you were dead sprint to the door, but it was over in, like, a minute. Give me a little bit more of that terror of Vader chasing you, Like... Or even the first time, not the first time you fight the second sister, because that was on Baraka. The second time when you're on Zepho, I think it was. She's getting ready to kill you, and BD1 saves you by turning on that force field.
Yeah.
Give me something like that, too. Like, where you try to fight him, and, like, you get a couple shots in, but then he's like, enough's enough, and starts choking you out, and somehow, like, I don't know, like BD or Seer. Yeah. Give me something like that where I can fight him just a little bit. I know there's no way in hell you can beat Vader, but let me fight him a little bit, and let me try to run from him a little bit. Like, let me run through the entire facility to get away from him. I just think his gameplay section in there was so short and so quick that I wanted more with him.
And I wonder if at some point you get to fight Maul, you think? I don't know how their timelines overlap. Oh no, because
Maul's still around
because of his robot legs.
Yeah, Maul eventually dies on Tatooine at the hands of Obi-Wan. He finally tracks down Obi-Wan. They have one final duel, and Obi-Wan kills him.
Cool.
So, and that is when Obi-Wan's I don't think he's like Ben old, but like somewhere in between. The Purge and when we see him in Star Wars as Old Man Ben, like somewhere in there is when this happens. So like timeline, yeah, we could run into Maul.
Cool. I'd be down for that.
Yeah. Then, yeah. We could also timeline run into I can't remember his name, Star Killer, but I can't remember his actual like name in Force Unleashed.
Shit.
I know, I've completely blocked out on it.
Sam Witwer is his name, but I don't know what his actual actor's name is. So Star Killer, whatever his name is, it's fine. But yeah, that'd be cool too. That would be a really cool, yeah.
We could meet him.
That'd be awesome. I'd be down for that.
Yeah, man. So, all right, I did my retcon. What did you do?
So I'll start with gameplay. I would definitely add New Game Plus, and that would just make the replays a lot less ridiculous, and then I'd probably consider getting the Platinum for this game. But they're not going to do that, so I'm not going to do that, so it's fine. I'd also add the ability to fast travel through the world via meditation points throughout the game, because they're friggin' everywhere, but it just takes so long to zip around. Like, I don't know, there's like I think it's Zepho or somewhere where there's like all these like caverns and ice caves and stuff.
And everything.
And it's just so, like, just trying to get around there after you've already been there is just so tedious.
I put that planet off for last.
Yeah.
When I was going to 100% everything, because I knew how hard it is to traverse that.
And again, that's my other motivation for like, give me Force Sprint or something. It's just so, you're making the game not fun anymore. Like God of War was consistently fun the entire time. The Riddler trophies in Batman Arkham Knight were not fun at all at any point. Like it was just so grindy. So like game developers got to figure out that like, if you're going to make us go for your platinum, like your game better be fun to play, or else I'm not. And that I'm not. I love Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It's a great game. It really was. I'll never platinum it because I don't want to, because I'm not going to waste my time fighting this buggy game that keeps on crashing with a lack of abilities that I want. So I'm not going to do that. And so the third thing that I would add is a grapple hook. And so I see why they didn't, because it would have made it feel a lot more Uncharted-y. But like that zip line mechanic worked great. And I love being able to like slide down and slide up. And then there's also like the ice and mud hills and stuff. And I just think if you were able to add this other component of being able to like jump and throw a hook and swing around and stuff like you were swinging on vines, I think that would have been a really cool mechanic to help like really expand the dimensions of the world and just make it a little bit bigger.
It's funny that you brought up the Uncharted series, because a couple of the negative reviews I was reading to try to find the one I wanted for the podcast, people were complaining because it's what they call it. It was Uncharted 5 Jedi shenanigans. There were people complaining because it was too similar to Uncharted, and it's just a reskinned Uncharted.
I just think we got to get over that shit. I think we're at to the point where like every game that's made is going to be influenced by a game that you've played before, and so there's all this is a roguelike, this is a whatever, like this is just this is Tomb Raider, this is Uncharted, this is whatever. Just stop. Like everything is going to be influenced by everything else. Do you like this game developer's version of it, their take on it? So
like people need to start looking at games as they are, as is standalone, versus comparing them to other series.
Yeah, note the influences, fine, that's whatever. But they're just trying to be their game. They're trying to do it the best they can, whatever. So calm the fuck down. So plot line elements that I would change. I initially didn't have any problems with the story. Yeah. And this is one of the very few times where like I didn't really want them to retcon the story that we were told, because I liked it a lot. I thought it was great. I thought, yeah, like you were saying, they could unpack Grease a little bit more, Seer a little bit more, the Night Sisters a little bit more. I agree with all of those things. I just want to learn more about this world, and I think that's what the sequel will give us.
You could do that too, because again, I agree. Like storyline, I love the story. My thing was just more in depth. But if they ever do decide to do DLC, they could give us that. They could do a DLC kind of more, Grease focused, where you're kind of dealing with stuff from his past and etc. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and instead of changing the story, I just think that there's a bunch of interesting places that I would like to see going forward, or maybe in DLC if they make it, which I don't think that they will, or like in the sequels. So we're 5 years after the Purge, which means Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia are 5 years old as well, and there might be a really good opportunity for us to see them at some point and interact with them or something. It'd be really cool for us to like wind up on Tatooine and see Luke, like little Luke at some point, or maybe have interaction with like the uncle or like the family or like the aunt or even Obi-Wan. Yeah, and like maybe you're who helps kind of like weaken Darth Maul, or maybe you're there for that fighter. Like maybe there's got to be some way to kind of like correlate that I think we would be able to do and be interesting. Or like we wind up on Alderaan and we're helping maybe we see a very young Princess Leia, but really we're helping like the king and the whatever else we're doing like on Alderaan at that time. Like we're just there kind of in support of that mission, and so she sees this full-grown Jedi. And so in Rise of Skywalker, one of the things is like you really do see Princess Leia as a Force-powered individual, where you didn't really see her as a Jedi before. You just kind of assumed. And so it'd be cool to maybe see, you and Cal Cal and her have a little moment where like you're teaching her something with the Force, or maybe you're the first one to realize that she is Force sensitive, and maybe that's that connection. I think that there's a lot that you can do to kind of unpack that world and like do a little bit more to connect it.
And yeah, and like we said too, like you could bring in Starkiller, who, by the way, his name is Galen Merrick.
What?
Starkiller? Galen Merrick.
I have no memory of that name at all. So
that is his character.
I'm glad that you told me, because I had no idea.
I googled it. But anyways, we could do a lot of stuff with him too, because there's enough time that they could play with timeline where we could bro chill with him before Vader really kind of unleashed him necessarily, or after, and when he makes that transition to more of the light side, trying to fight trying to fight against Vader. We could bro chill with him there.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, that's where you get some of your darker powers. So you're spending time with Luke, you're spending some time with him, getting him trained up. You're spending some time with, you know, Princess Leia, getting her trained up a little bit. And then if you're spending time with Starkiller or whatever the fuck his name was, you know, he teaches you Force Lightning, he teaches you, you know, whatever else, and then you just kind of have this cool mentorship, and you become kind of like the new young Jaro Tapal kind of mentor guy as you. I just think there's so many ways where we can go and like reconnect to the story, which I think would be cool. So, but yeah, I mean that's it. I think it's an incredible story. I think there's a lot more they can do with this world, and I really look forward to seeing what they do with the property. And I hope that team stays intact for a little while longer, so that same team can build the world bigger and then add some more elements.
I would like to see a sequel.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so that's it. Any other thoughts before we shut this bitch down, Brian?
I mean, I think we kind of wrapped it up pretty well. I'm good with what we did.
Thank you for hanging out with me today. Folks, and thank you for listening to Briar and myself dissect Jedi Fallen Order. This is, like I said, the 6th and final episode of our pilot season. So from this point on, we're just going out. We're going to go straight into the intro. We're going to go straight into writer's room, and then we'll just hit the ground running. So,
which should mean that the episodes will be a little bit short.
I hope so. We'll see. So if you did like this show, you're welcome to check out our page on Facebook by searching for Retcon Air. We'll also be posting their stuff on a regular basis. We'll also have a link to our website, which I don't know how to articulate to you because it's like it's on Wix, but it's all weird. It's not like whatever retconair.com. We're figuring all that out. So we have a website, and it's got like links to get you to wherever you want.
It's not great, but it's functional.
The purpose of it is just to give you directions. If you want to listen on Spotify, if you want to listen on Stitcher, iTunes, or like YouTube, I have direct links for you there, just so you don't have to go searching around for it. So we're trying to do that for you as best we can. And no matter where you're listening to this podcast, if you would be so kind, please leave us a positive review and just give us some feedback on this, because what that does is that definitely informs us on where to take this show. We've done a lot of like kind of community building and talking to a lot of people that have been listening to our show and giving us some feedback. We take all that seriously. We'll listen to a lot of that stuff, and we do make changes based on your feedback. So please keep doing that. But the reviews also help us compete in this very competitive podcast space. There are, I mean, even as we started this, we have friends that have launched movie podcasts. I mean, it's nonstop.
We're late into the podcast game, and we got a lot of ground to cover.
For sure. But I hope that you do realize how much time, thought, energy that we do spend putting together a pretty solid, well-researched show. I mean, like, look at the writer's room, how much time we spent breaking down Respawn.
And we went so depth into that we're looking to, branch off another thing altogether.
Yeah, just a spin-off just on, like, research. So we love putting the show together. It's a passion project for all of us, and we really do hope that you like it and that you'll support it going forward. So that's it for us on this episode of Retcon Air, and we will catch you next time.
See ya.